My name is Nurit Peled-Elhanan, and I teach language education at the university. And for the last, 5-6 years, I've been engaged in the analysis of Israeli textbooks, and especially the racist discourse of Israeli education, both in class and in textbooks. And more specifically in the representation of Palestinians in textbooks, and my book about it is going to be published soon.
In Israel?
No, in London, Tauris Publishers. I think my life work is about educational discourse, whatever it entails. So this was a phase. I actually started the study because I wanted to see how these books use scientific language for ideological purposes, really. And I didn't know I would fall on so much racism.
Yeah.
What I found was that all the racist categories that you can imagine or that are in the literature about the racist representation of people, both verbally and visually, is there in Israeli textbooks. And I thought it was very important to say that because the whole world slanders Palestinian education without even knowing anything about it, including Hillary Clinton. And nobody controls and monitors the Israeli education. Now, Palestinian education cannot be racist because it is so controlled and monitored by the world, even if they wanted to. And so I looked into that, and I started looking into Israeli books, and I found that whereas really Palestinian textbooks can say the Zionist enemy kills our children, demolishes our houses, which is not racism but facts, in Israel, Palestinians are, if they are represented, usually they are not represented at all. 20% of the population here are Palestinian citizens. I'm not talking about the non-citizens. And they are not represented at all, as if they don't exist. Nothing of their culture, of their customs, nothing, only as problems. And to represent people as problem is racism. And so visually, you don't see even in all Israeli books, and you have a lot of them because it's a private industry. They are trade books. And in none of them can you find a photograph of a Palestinian person. You see a teacher, a doctor, whatever, nothing. You only find racist icons of the Alibaba kind
Just
of
cartoons
with a camel,
not real people,
and the primitive farmer, and all these icons. When you look at the literature of racist representation, they are there. I mean, they're really the most racist icons of representation of the third world. And it exists in other countries too regarding the third world, but in Israel, I think it's crucial to understand that, because this is all the children know about their Arab neighbors.
because they don't meet them.
They never meet them, and they are drafted to the army right after school. And this is what they know. They know that there are problems that should be solved, eliminated, that they are intruders, that they are deviant, criminal, primitive, shouldn't be here.
Enemy.
And of course, enemy, all the Arabs, but the Palestinians and the Palestinian citizens are second-class, third-class citizens because they are primitive, because they are clannish, because they are the enemy from within, and so on and so forth. So you have a whole industry, and a very sophisticated one, that really make them disappear. Because, for example, if you see graphs or diagrams, you don't suspect they are not objective. You don't suspect scientific representations not to be scientific. So you always have this little asterisk saying that the graph represents only the Jewish population, which is unscientific, not only racist. Or maps. None of the maps in Israel, if you go to post offices and hospitals and banks and school books, show the children the real borders of the state. They don't know the real borders of the state. They don't know there is occupation. People here think that the whole, what is called greater land of Israel, is ours. And if it is not, it should be. And they present it as a geographic entity, you see? With the use of the Bible and archaeology and all these tricks. And I really think that, well, the whole discourse in Israel, as you have already felt, I guess, is very racist. People ask you, are you Jewish or not Jewish? The first thing, you know. But children are initiated and then they are educated in this discourse to an extent that they don't even know it's racist. They don't even, they're not equipped to distinguish between racism and you know, tolerant kind of speech. They don't know, they don't think anything is wrong about that. Yeah. And I have students, you know, who are teachers. My students are teachers. And when they see what I show them, they're shocked. They're really shocked. Because, you know, racism doesn't stop with the Arabs. It goes into Jewish ethnicities too. Like Jews who came from Arab countries are discriminated in, you know, in the state, but also in education. They are not represented anywhere. And they never see anything wrong with it. Like integration means that they have to lose themselves to you know, to commit cultural suicide. And that's why I think it's very important to really teach that and to show teachers, you know, to teach them how to read that. Yeah. And once they know, they cannot ignore it anymore. I don't know what they do with it later on, but they cannot ignore it anymore and they react. They are very, they react vehemently to these discoveries. So that's why I think it's important, such a study. Much as it may cost me, I don't know what, but no, publicly, socially, academically, and so on. I think it's an important study.
Can I talk about the cost just quickly? It's pretty clear that if you defend Palestine, you're portrayed as an enemy of Israel or an anti-Semite or a hater of Israel. But your father was a general.
Self-hating Jew.
Self-hating Jew. You live here in Jerusalem. You haven't moved out. What?
Well, my father was a general, but he was also the first and greatest peace activist in Israel. He was the first to go to Tunis, disguised as a woman, and meet Arafat. And he paid a horrible price because he was really outcast by his friends, by everybody. I mean, he could have been a minister, he could have been whatever he wanted, and he was outcast.
But for meeting with Arafat and trying to get some peace.
For betraying the code, for betraying the code. I mean, Rabin finally realized that he was right, but he paid a horrible price. My mother also. They were outcast. I mean, all their friends, everybody. And almost all their friends. But so for my mother it was very hard, and at that time we were threatened, my children were threatened, they had to be protected, really. I guess I do pay some price. I think I didn't get tenure at the university, and I'm sure this is one of the reasons. But I don't really care for that. I find myself not really caring for that. I mean, it could be nice.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's not a reason not to do what you think you have to do. So you do what you have to do.